Project 676 has been talked about a lot in the offseason, and now with a legendary designer coming back to the team to make that 2024 car, there is big news going around for the Ferrari squad. And I'm talking about with the car gaining downforce points and in general working on changing 95% of the car. So there's a lot to speak about upon the rumors and what we know for fact, especially with this legendary designer coming back. Before we get into the bigger parts of the video, I wanted to thank you all because you guys are amazing for subscribing and liking and really supporting the channel. So if you haven't, if you're new here, please subscribe and like. It would mean the world for me, and you guys genuinely make me so happy. So thank you so much for supporting the channel. Let's get into this 2024 Ferrari car because it's a big one. So let's speak about the legendary designer that's came back to the team. It might not be a name that's, I guess, a household name to us right now, currently in 2024, but man, this guy back in the day, what he was making and him coming back is a big asset to the team. So if the name sounds familiar, it's Rory Byrne. And if you know what this guy has done, he has made and really helped a driver that is regarded as the GOAT in our sport. One of them, at least. That is Michael Schumacher. This guy has on his resume 8 world championships, 7 of them being drivers championships and 7 of them being constructor championships. But it's 8 whole seasons that he's had them for. 1 for Benetton, 6 for Ferrari, and 7 for Michael Schumacher. This guy has made every single car that Michael has actually really dominated with. So Byrne is, as being told in the article, and as I'm saying, a legendary designer to Ferrari, but Formula One in general. So him coming back is a big thing for the team. He plays a big role because they've changed 95% of their car. Fred Vasseur has already confirmed this. Now, he has actually said that 95% to them is a evolution. Well, to me, this is more of a revolution than a evolution, but he says we are changing 95% of the components of the car. Perhaps you can consider that a revolution. So I guess he does speak on it a little bit, but at first he was saying, oh, this is just kind of like a evolution to our other car, but it's a pretty big change and a lot of significant things. Now, there are rumors and pictures that have came out for Projecto 676, kind of showing you how the car will look. So I have it up on screen right now. It is a interesting look. Obviously looks very Red Bull-esque, but this always kind of comes out. The Italian media speculates what the car could look like. Here's a frontal view that they've also made. Both these views are pretty cool to look at, but it doesn't actually give us a gist of what the car is going to actually be. Yes, we do know they're going to go with a more different concept. That overcut concept was only set to 3 cars in 2022. And I'll tell you this, none of those 3 cars actually successfully made it to 2023 doing a lot better. First was the F175, very successful car within the first like 7 or 8 races, then fell back to the RB18. Then we actually had the Haas, which was also a very good car, but fell back. I call it the butter shredder, both in 22 and 23. There's a reason for this. The overcut doesn't work. And the AMR 22. Now that thing at some point was slower than an F2 car in a straight line. So that gives you a good idea of why the overcut wasn't working. Big time drag on those cars, really killed it in the long run. But now they obviously went with a different shift in the SF23, started with the overcut, changed to a more undercut design, still kind of a bit of a hybrid, but the car was doing better on its tires, was still good in a straight line. So they have picked up on a couple things. In Japan, they brought the floor for specifically Leclerc, who will be a big factor into this 2024 car. It's been reported, been talked about that this car will have a more oversteery setup. Even Carlos Sainz going on to say that the car feels different, not actually talking more positively like he usually does. He does say the car should suit his driving style still, but he said different. Now Leclerc said it's looking a lot better. So the team has been speaking upon the car and saying that it is a much better car, with actual reports coming out claiming, this is the rumor right now, that they've added 30 points of downforce already to the car. Now, each upgrade that comes to the car equates to about 2/10, usually, throughout the season. Now, obviously, there are bigger ones like McLaren, who made practically a 1-second step up, and that does happen if you dedicate a lot of parts to one big upgrade package. Obviously, throughout the winter, these are huge upgrade packages. It's not just little things coming to the car like a front wing or a rear wing. It's a complete chassis, different design for this Ferrari car. And their actual chassis passed the crash test. This isn't really that significant in my personal opinion. Now, we already had Helmut Marko come out through this week saying, yeah, we failed the first one, but it's not a big deal. You don't want to pass the first one. You want to see where you can take it to the limit. Now, we don't know if Ferrari or Aston have actually failed another one. It's a rumor that they've even passed it in the first place, but he's right. He makes a good point. You do want that chassis or even the frontal area that Red Bull specifically failed to be at its lowest amount of weight, or the weight distribution in the car is set up to how you want it. So yes, some fails might come, but you're going to the limit of the car. So with them actually passing it, and with all these good rumors coming out, the 30 points of downforce, what does that equivalent to? That equates to about 4 to 5 tenths. That's a big jump, but I'll tell you this. The Italian media, and in general with Ferrari, in the off-season, love to boast about their car. Now, I mean, from the F175 to the SF23, they were saying this car was gonna fly off to the moon. That's what they were practically talking about. They said 1.5 seconds on the car. This thing will be a straight line bullet. And yes, it was a good car. Yes, it was a straight line bullet for most of the season, but it lost a lot of downforce. It had a lot of problems. And actually, from the F175 to the SF23, the car had the same pace in Bahrain. Now, a lot of this gets kind of out of context because they lost a lot of downforce points because of the new floor mandate from 22 to 23. So they had to raise it. Losing downforce points there really screwed them in the long run, and a lot of teams. So you can't really just go off of, oh, they're slower than their past car. Well, yeah, they were supposed to lose a second in time anyways from just the floor being raised that much. It made that much of a difference for the next year. So realistically, they gained like 5 tenths on their past car, but that wasn't enough to even get close to jumping Red Bull. And with the whole entire butter shredder that it pretty much had in the beginning of the season, but changing it kind of hints at what we could be getting. Now, obviously, suspension has been a big talking point in 2024. Like, I mean, a big one. And why is that? Because Red Bull and McLaren are the biggest teams to have that suspension set up and actually successfully go for it. AlphaTauri even added it at some point, Racing Bulls, whatever you want to call them. We don't even know yet. They added it in Singapore, and their car gained a lot of significant pace. So suspension plays a big role. Why though? I already talked about it in my Red Bull video, but the base of the car is super important for these new Formula One cars because of the floor edge. Actually putting the car at a certain level for the base, having it there going around that is a significant factor in if the car will actually perform throughout the whole entire season consistently. Obviously, Singapore was that one-off for Red Bull where they weren't that good, but that was about it. Everywhere else, they performed really highly, and all they really changed was that rear wing or front wing a couple of times. Now look at a team like Aston Martin, who had a very interesting base for their car. What happened? In Brazil, in Mexico, in COTA, they changed up pretty much all of the car, tested it a whole bunch to see what was the best, rather than just changing front wings and rear wings. By the way, the Red Bull only changed its front wing or rear wing 3 times in the season, showing you how good the actual base of the car is. That's why changing 95% of the car is so important for this Ferrari team, because it's a big step up in if they can actually change the base of the car, the level of the floor, to be significantly better in every track, not just a couple like they had in Monza. They were really good in 90-degree angles, but this actually puts a lot of pressure on the team to make the car just so good in the middle base of it that the front and the rear wing is really all you need to change to add more downforce points, but make it a lot better through the season. Adding 4 to 5 tenths is a big step up, because that could just be the base of the car without the other significant front wings and rear wings that will be coming throughout the whole entire season. With the obvious side pod change, so should the suspension come too, because of the base. So that's where I think the 95% number comes from for really the Ferrari squad. And they also just lost their former strategy chief, Inaki Rueda. Now this gains them about like 30 seconds per race, because this guy was making a lot of mistakes. Strategy, glory now for the team. Hopefully this means a lot of big changes. They improved upon their pit stops. I think Fred Vasseur has been a gem to this team so far, and he's actually stepped up when the team has needed it. I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below with the Ferrari team, everything that you've heard. legendary designer coming back. What are your thoughts? Please leave a like, subscribe, it would mean the world, and peace.